Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries. In the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots, and welcome to Patriot Radio. Today, the Middle East braces for war. Also, Doge continues its rampage through D.C., and, well, the cockroaches are running for cover. Although, they don't really have a lot of cover left because they don't have any money. I love it. And Russia. Peace talks for real? That's what it sounds like. And Zelensky, a little bit of a sad face today because Trump called Putin first. Here at Patriot Radio, we want to give you the information before everyone else does, and more accurate, so that you and your family can be prepared for the times that are ahead. So follow us on Telegram, patriotradio.us/Telegram, for all the breaking news, especially this weekend. Very high pressure with Hamas saying they are not going to give the hostages back, and Trump saying, if you don't, all hell will break loose. We're going to see what happens. By the way, and a total side note, Eltopia, Washington, if you don't know, was actually originally named Hell to Pay, Washington, so they abbreviated it to Eltopia. Eltopia right now is freezing over. So, hell is freezing over today, and yes, I think that's the appropriate timing because Washington, D.C. is being completely drained of the swamp. That brings us to your wisdom from the Word today. Proverbs 29, verse 2. When the righteous increase, the people rejoice. But when a wicked person rules, people groan. I would reverse it just a little bit. When the righteous increase, the wicked groan. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. We're also beginning to see the righteous increase as entrepreneurs are realizing this window that is opening up. And the economy is being kickstarted as we speak. Also, Trump's tariffs really, I think, doing something in the religious sphere that many people may not understand. Right now is the best time to spread the gospel around the world. As the economy is evened out and the United States stops losing money to other countries, that also means that with that balance, we're able to spread the gospel farther. Now, if you need a little bit of an economic lesson in that, I'm not going to get into that today, but we have a window of opportunity here to spread the gospel farther because the United States has regained respect around the world. Christian missionaries can go into places where before they didn't know if the Biden administration was going to have their back. Now they do. That doesn't mean be reckless, pray into what you're supposed to go into, but I would just say right now, when the righteous increase, the people rejoice, and so are the Christians today around the world. Which brings us to a point, if you need prayer, please click on this QR code, patriotradio.us/prayer. Submit a prayer request, and we would love to pray with you and journey with you as we go into this time of increase. Now, there's also a piece of this as well that as we see God's move increase here in the world and here in Washington State and around the country, a lot of people are going to be asking questions and shouldn't be blown to and fro, but should have a solid grounding. And part of praying is praying with you into your calling, into your purpose. And when that happens, a lot of other things begin to fade and drop away, like distractions, like sin. So, repentance is a gift. And if you need to repent, you want to give your life to Jesus, patriotradio.us/salvation. You can kind of see a theme here. We have a group that would be more than happy to pray with you and to lead you into that prayer of salvation. But then, not just stop at the cross, but do as Jesus said and pick up the cross and follow him into your destiny. That brings us now to your daily intelligence brief. Coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
Man, fast stuff right there. Here's the deal. Part of what we're doing, confronting globalism, is confronting the twins, the evil twins that are out there right now. Globalism, technocracy, also has a twin, and that twin is transhumanism. Yuval Noah Harari said, quote, "The technology is going under your skin." The Planned Nanotech Prison, a white paper review. You can check that out on Technocracy News, and I would recommend people see this. The idea is always couched in terms that you would want to receive. Oh, this is going to make you better. This is going to improve your life. This is going to make your life easier. When really there's a nefarious piece of that with technocracy, with nanotech, can come control. Are we asking the right questions now and putting the right things in place to stop that? That is, are we going to stop Yuval Noah Harari from his megalomaniacal plans? That brings us now to the China front. The Wall Street Journal reports that China has tried to convince Trump to hold peace talks on Ukraine between the U.S. and Russia in Beijing without the presence of Ukraine or Europe. Part of the China plan would be to send Chinese peacekeeping soldiers to Ukraine. I think that's probably been rejected, as we'll see here in a bit. But what this does show is that China is trying to flex its muscle and project power around the world prior to an attempt to invade Taiwan, prior to an attempt to start a war in the South Pacific. We need to listen to people's hearts. And I want everybody to pay attention to this right now. As a pastor, quite often we don't listen to the Father's heart, let alone listen to other people's hearts. Listen to what the communists say. Their heart is to take over the world. Their heart is total control. That's what their heart is. The jihadi's heart is similar. So why do we not listen to their heart? We can also listen to the Father's heart. Freedom. Being empowered by the Holy Spirit after you give your life to Jesus. Make him your Lord and your Savior. Part of what I see happening that is a huge mistake in America and in American churches is we are not listening to the heart that people are speaking out. And we should be warned that when they say something, they actually mean it. The communists, the jihadis, and of course, the globalists. Take them at their word. That will be the first step for us to help stop evil. The U.S. is no longer primarily focused on Europe's security, says Pete Hegseth, shifting military priorities to defending its homeland and deterring China. Stark strategic realities prevent the United States of America from being primarily focused on the security of Europe. We also face a peer competitor in communist Chinese, able to threaten the American mainland and core national interests in the Indo-Pacific. The U.S. is prioritizing deterring war with China in the Pacific, recognizing the reality of scarcity and making the resource trade-offs to ensure deterrence does not fail. As the United States shifts its attention to these threats, European allies must lead from the front, end quote. So very clearly, Trump means what he says about NATO allies beginning to carry their own weight. Navies of the USA, UK, and Australia have teamed up for joint drills in the South China Sea, demonstrating their ability to work together as one of the world's most contested waters. If you take a look at this map right now, The exercises focused on tactical maneuvers and coordination show that this area of the South China Sea doesn't just encompass Taiwan, but goes all the way down right to what is called the Malacca Strait. And if you don't know that strategic area, the Malacca Strait is where a lot of Chinese oil comes through, and it's a place that can be easily choked off. So China claims a huge swath of the South China Sea, not recognizing the Philippines, not recognizing other countries as well. This is power projection right now happening. And on the heels of this, it looks like Darren Beatty is going to be moved out of the State Department because of some of his disparaging comments against Taiwan. So, look, at Taiwan is an independent country. Chiang Kai-shek, when he fled the communists because of a betrayal from the deep state inside the U.S. government. Remember, 320 plus confirmed Soviet agents in the Roosevelt administration. So when Chiang Kai-shek fled, he was keeping the true Republic of China free. That's the origin of Taiwan. And I suspect there may be a shift in U.S. foreign policy along that line here very soon. Also, the Australian Defense Forces issued an alert about Chinese warships operating in Australia's exclusive economic zone and traveling through the Torres Strait. The ADF also revealed that a Chinese fighter jet released flares in close proximity to Royal Australian Air Force plane. No injuries were sustained, but this is, again, continuing tensions rising there in the South China Sea. And as a result of that, Pete Hegseth made his statement today. Very wise. And I hope it's not too little too late that Biden didn't set us up for a war in the South China Sea that cannot be reversed. After we come back from the break, more from the Middle East front. Will there be war this weekend?
Attention business owners and entrepreneurs, Patriot TV is launching a brand new TV series showcasing American-made products, and your business could be featured. Whether you sell your products online on Etsy or Shopify and dream of reaching millions of viewers on smart TVs like Samsung, Sony, TCL, and LG, or apps like Roku, Android, and Apple TV, this is your chance. We're searching for U.S.-based businesses offering all types of products and services proudly made in the USA. If you've ever wanted to showcase your products on TV like QVC or the Home Shopping Network, now's your opportunity. Support our American economy, grow your business, and be seen by loyal Patriot viewers across the country. Know someone with a business or have a business yourself? Don't miss out. Contact us at supportingpatriots.com today. Be a guest on this new exciting TV series. Let's put your American-made products in the spotlight.
The new Supporting Patriots show on Patriot TV spotlights great Patriot-owned companies and introduces them to Patriot consumers, encouraging them to buy American-made. If you're an America-loving patriot that owns and operates his or her own business, and you have Made in America products or services, you're the perfect candidate to be interviewed on the Supporting Patriots show. If you'd like to be considered for an interview, email us at supportingpatriots@patriot.tv.
And now, the Middle East front. The USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier collided with a Panamanian cargo ship right off the coast of Egypt last night. I hope that's not like a prophetic sign of what is about to happen in the Middle East. If you've not been following it, there's been a huge buildup in the Sinai Peninsula of Egyptian armored forces. So right south of Gaza. Be interesting to see what happens this weekend. And speaking of this weekend, Hamas will not release the hostages Saturday. Senior Hamas spokesman told media, I'm just going to say it's not really media, Al Jazeera, Wednesday evening, that the group will not release all Israeli hostages on Saturday, as has been recently demanded. U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to, quote, let all hell break loose if all the Gaza hostages aren't returned, end quote. By Saturday at noon, by the way, I guess high noon in the Middle East. Interesting that some countries are understanding the gravity of the situation. The United Arab Emirates signals the possibility of removing all Palestinians from Gaza. Yeah, the Israelis don't trust them. Why would the Israelis trust that they would stay there? And we're going to have a couple of videos later that really highlight this fact. At the World Government Summit, UAE ambassador acknowledged the U.S. approach to Gaza as, quote, difficult, but didn't rule out the possibility of resettling Palestinians elsewhere. Trump has been very serious on that front. So, as we come into this weekend, let's be praying for peace in Jerusalem and peace in Israel. That brings us now to the Russia front. Moldova summoned the Russian ambassador after drones exploded on its soil. Very interesting that Poland also had an incursion of Russian drones. Remember, Poland is a NATO ally. Moldova, at this point, is just going to protest. But this shows how close we could be to something happening there prior to peace talks. And I expect that things are going to ramp up, not down, prior to peace talks this coming week. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also said today that the U.S. could potentially reduce the number of troops it has stationed in Europe in a peace deal with Russia about Ukraine. Hegseth was asked whether Europe would or should be prepared for the U.S. to cut 100,000 troops it is deployed on the continent, but he said, quote, we have not said in any way we are abandoning our allies in Europe. There have been no decisions on troop levels, but that's a discussion to be had by the commander-in-chief in these high-stake negotiations, end quote. Russia gave the U.S. an ultimatum 2 months before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, demanding all NATO forces withdraw from areas east of Berlin if Russia was not to invade Ukraine. Again, this is positioning, but I would expect things to increase, to ramp up, actually, prior to peace talks. That said, President Trump says there will be a meeting between the U.S., Russian, and Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia next week. President Zelensky, not happy that Trump called Putin before him. A little bit of posturing going on there. And just to be very blunt, it would be, well, Zelensky's days probably are numbered as the president of Ukraine. I think as part of a peace deal, there will be elections and Zelensky will not win those elections. Also, in Finland, Finns are outraged after the police published statistics on the nationality of the perpetrators behind sex crimes. Compared to Finns, the rates of sexual offenses committed are 6 times more by Somalis, 10 times more by Iraqis, 12 times more by Afghans and Congolese, and 15 times higher by Syrians. Perhaps Finland is looking at shutting its border, not just with Russia, but also with the Middle East. The U.S. and India will build a great trade route, including Italy, Israel, too. That was announced today as part of a press conference with the Indian leader, Modi. And with that, you can see some of these trade routes. Looks very much like some of the old trade routes via sea that existed prior to the second iteration, the third iteration of the Obama administration, and you heard me right. Trump, quote, BRICS is dead, end quote. And then he continued, and most of those people don't want to even talk about it now. They're afraid to talk about it because I told them if they want to play games with the dollar, they're going to be hit with a 100% tariff. He said this stuff today, and then more during the press conference with the Indian leader we're going to get to, clearly challenging with U.S. strength. Trump said the U.S. would boost military sales to India, including the F-35 stealth fighter jets. That's obviously a counter to China, but then turned around in the same press conference and said India has imposed the highest tariffs. Now, whatever they change, the U.S. will match and impose reciprocal tariffs on India at the press conference with the Indian leader. That's true American leadership right there, and I know a lot of people are overjoyed. That brings us now to the national front. A weaponized FBI. It's real, say whistleblowers, boasting scars to prove it. In other words, many whistleblowers actually suffered not just job loss, but had their own security clearances suspended. Allegations include at least two of the fired officials, Jeffrey Veltri and Dina Perkins, manipulated the security clearance review process to personally and professionally punish conservatives, COVID-19 vaccine skeptics, and January 6 whistleblowers who reported suspected bureau malfeasance and retaliated against those who came to the whistleblowers' defense. I think we're going to see some prosecutions coming out of that if Pam Bondi continues down the road that she is right now as the new Attorney General. So we're now seeing justice beginning to come. And finally, for many people who have tried to do the right thing, but were persecuted because they believe the Constitution means what it says. Some good news. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is now the head of the Maha movement officially. Today, he was confirmed, and here's the quote. RFK Jr. is going to lead a great national mission to make America healthy again. I think we're going to do things that will really make us very proud, end quote. President Donald Trump, and it is about time. One of the greatest bridges. Now, RFK Jr. is the real deal. I have met him personally, talked to him personally. He understands truth, and he will pursue the truth regardless of party affiliation. And I think that's finally something that we need, of a refreshing moment. That Big Pharma and even Big Ag should not be driving the train on our health, that we should know what is going into our bodies. We're about to see some very encouraging things happen here in just the next 30 days on the health front. Illegal border crossings hit record lows after Trump's swift crackdown and could be on track for levels not seen in, wait for it, 60 years, according to the New York Post. What had to happen? We just had to take it seriously, and there had to be the political will. A female Secret Service special agent, I wonder if special is going to be removed now, trainee accidentally shot herself in the leg at the agency's Raleigh Training Center. A female special agent trainee accidentally shot herself in the leg on Wednesday at the Secret Service's Raleigh Training Center, South Laurel, Maryland. According to Susan Crabtree, she says that multiple sources within the Secret Service community report she was airlifted to a Baltimore hospital emergency room, and the incident allegedly occurred due to an accidental discharge while holstering her weapon. So those that saw what happened in Pennsylvania and how the one Secret Service agent couldn't even holster her weapon properly, this is what happens when we do not prioritize competence and a commitment to excellence, a consistency to excellence. That doesn't mean we have to be perfect. But we should have the best of the best in the Secret Service, the U.S. military. We shouldn't be compromising for some other agenda like DEI. Also, Trump administration begins mass layoffs across multiple federal agencies, according to ABC. Wow, he's taking this seriously, firing 5 levels down and more. Draining the swamp in real time. Also, 75,000 people so far have taken Trump's buyout offer, and it looks like that number may also be increasing. In addition, the Department of Education terminated grants to the 4 equity assistance centers totaling $33 million. One provided professional learning around critical race theory and racial literacy. Looks like some of that ideological mess is being cleaned up as well. And probably one of the best news stories today, DOJ officials have just entered the IRS building in D.C. to begin their investigation in that agency, and all of America is clapping. All of America. Well, maybe not all of it, because San Francisco may not be clapping, but most of America is clapping right now because I think overwhelmingly, as was shown by a poll on X, the IRS needs an audit instead of auditing other people. This is a real story, what I'm about to read. It's absolutely incredible. And the reason I preface it with that is because it sounds unbelievable, but it's real. The United States government paid Reuters millions of dollars. Okay? Millions of dollars. And as you look at this from usaspending.gov, Thomson Reuters Special Services, there's an award, completed, includes COVID-19 spending, paid. And then down in the bottom right-hand corner, here's the description. I'm going to read this. Active Social Engineering Defense, ASED, and LSD, or large-scale social deception. They paid them to deceive our society on a large scale, and here is the literal receipt for it. This should spark investigations across the board. People should be held accountable for this. Using taxpayer money for disinformation. Okay, this is intentional deception. I mean, we've heard about disinformation campaigns, and that word has been so misused, but this is literally what they're calling this. And I remember people were saying, oh, you don't know what you're talking about COVID-19 and all this other stuff that's going on. They would argue with you, and here it is in black and white. Perhaps what you think you know out there isn't true. Perhaps. You should take a look at this. Show this to your friends and family members. The ones that don't believe that the government would ever deceive them. There it is in black and white. President Trump reveals staggering government waste numbers today, including $521 billion in fraud per year. How do you even fathom that? Now, remember, our debt, just cracking down on fraud, waste, and abuse in government is going to rein in the budget. Up to $521 billion federal dollars lost to fraud per year. An estimated $236 billion or more in improper payments were made in 2023. $2.7 trillion in improper payments, including payments that went to the wrong recipient, were made in 2003 or since 2003, and $162 billion in improper payments total in 2024, including earned income tax credits, food stamps, restaurant revitalization, supplemental Social Security income, unemployment insurance, and Social Security disability insurance, the survivors insurance program. I mean, just adding this all up just together, this nice little neat thing, $4 trillion in the first 4 weeks of the Trump administration. This is no wonder Republicans are saying, hey, why don't we give a tax break of $4 trillion? Yeah, great idea. Also, 4% of the total workforce, which I mentioned earlier, has accepted Trump's buyout offer. It's going to be interesting to see if this continues to be allowed to play out and kind of be delayed if more and more people won't do this. You know, maybe it'll be 5, maybe 10%. The acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York abruptly resigned. On Monday, the Trump Justice Department moved to drop federal charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams and the SDNY U.S. attorney dropped. Now, what's interesting about this is Trump is actually moving to dismiss all U.S. attorneys, so she just may be ahead of the curve. I don't know. What I find fascinating as well is that the New York governor, Kathy Hochul, who was charged by Pam Bondi, issues defiant response to Pam Bondi's charges. She might end up regretting it, end quote. Are these people really, I mean, they really are. Yeah, they really are that arrogant. They really are going above the law, trying to float up there. The Trump administration is bringing some reality back down for these folks. Now, on a special note, around the country, there are going to be May Day rallies. So all the month of May, there are going to be rallies, 5 cities around the country. One of those cities is Seattle. You can find those at Don't Mess With Our Kids. We're going to be having a rally here in Washington State in Spokane on March 2nd with Jenny Donnelly at 6 p.m. Please show up and join this. I believe that the key point behind all of this is if we heal our families, we're going to heal the nation. And so we're coming together. May 24th in Seattle. If you're interested, please message us, and we'd love to get you connected. And that is the briefing. Remember, the antidote to dependency and socialism is to be a God-fearing, self-reliant, freedom-loving American. And thank you to everybody who's been praying for us. When we come back from the break, Heather Johnston on what is happening in Israel.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing your financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
And we're back with our guest, Heather Johnston. She is the founder and CEO of the U.S.-Israel Education Association, an expert on what's occurring in the West Bank, what the Israelis are trying to accomplish, and what we might expect here this coming weekend. Heather, it's great to have you on Patriot Radio. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
So this has been kind of an incredible last 48 hours. Hamas saying they're not going to release the hostages. Trump doubling down. What are the Israelis thinking? How is this going to shake out?
Well, I think it looks as though the decision's been made, and who knows when you're dealing with a group of psychopathic, murderers. How do you know how it's going to turn out? But it looks like they've come to the conclusion that 3 hostages will be released on Saturday, and so we're hoping for the best.
Yeah, and I want to go ahead and roll a clip. I don't think people understand that when they mean that they want to wipe Israel off the map, they have meant that all along. They're not, this isn't taken out of context. This isn't, reading into something. These are their own words. Let's go ahead and roll it.
The duty of every Muslim Palestinian to redeem the land through jihad?
It is the duty of every Muslim, not only Palestinian, to redeem this land.
Is there any way for you to redeem Palestine other than jihad?
Okay, there are no alternatives in the world.
They never refer to Israelis. They always refer to the Jews, right? Their plan is to kill all the Jews. All the Jews are the ones they want to wipe out. It's not about the Israelis, the Israeli oppressors.
And it never has been. What's your reaction to that, Heather?
Well, I think that's true. And you can kind of take a look at Hamas and how little they do care for the Palestinian people. They use them as human shields. They are living in the worst conditions on the face of the earth. And Hamas does not care. What do they care about? They care about that land. They want that strip of land. They want to be in governance over it. They want to be able to attack and annihilate the state of Israel. That is the sole reason why they exist.
I think many Arab countries were not taking Trump seriously when he said that the Palestinians are not going to come back to Gaza and he might turn it into a resort. I think a lot of them said, okay, yeah, he's just bluster, but he seems deadly serious about that.
I think he's very serious about that. And, it wasn't hard to make a decision like that after his Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, went to the region and then went to the Gaza Strip, really one of the first U.S. officials to see the demolition site called the Gaza Strip, where every building has been leveled and those that do remain and any places that do remain are booby trapped. And so nobody can go in anywhere. What that does is it leaves a population of about 1.8 million Gazan Palestinians living in tents in the middle of the winter. Disease is rampant. Children, half the population are under the age of 18. It's sickening. So yes, I think the vision that President Trump has is a virtuous one, inviting the region to step in, take the Gazans and move them into another situation that's better and where they can have homes and have a better lifestyle finally, and de-radicalize that society because the whole society has been radicalized, and then just clean off the situation in the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip's not that big. It's really not. It's going to be a 10-year process probably to rebuild it, but it's not that huge where you can't change the entire dynamic and offer economic development for the region.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the myth of the Palestinian, just to begin with. I mean, there has been a lot talked about recently, but before that, I didn't really hear a lot about this, even though history is very, very clear that this was almost, and I'm going to say it just straight out, it was invented to allow a foothold on the doorstep of Israel, and that was really the plan all the way along.
It was, and it was sort of at the same time, along the same lines of the founding of the state of Israel. You begin to see the rise of the Palestinian cause, or the Jordanians that were living there in the region that were then called Palestinians. And so we see alongside of Israel and the rising of the state of Israel, the rise of the Palestinian cause.
We do. And it's interesting that the UAE now, their foreign minister said, well, it looks like this might have to happen. Didn't discount the fact, and first Arab leader to really say so, didn't discount the fact that the Palestinians may actually have to be moved out of there. How are the Israelis taking that? Did they think this is serious? And is the Israeli government really backing Trump's plan?
I think most of the Israeli government at this point, thanks to the prime minister of Israel, who has had a 4.5-hour, huge, in-depth security conversation around the vision of President Trump. And I think he has the buy-in of the government for that direction. They do think it's an out-of-the-box idea and plan, but one that should be something to attain to. And that they would like to have the Sunni Muslim nations in the region be able to agree to the plan. Why not? But the problem is that with the Palestinian cause, it's about keeping the Palestinians in squalor, in a humanitarian crisis on that land. And so you ask yourself, well, why won't the Jordanians, if you care so much about the Palestinians, why don't you just let them come to Jordan? Or if you're an Egyptian and you care so much about their plight and that why do you have to focus in and say they have to stay on that land? And so it seems that each and every entity is looking for a way to keep the Palestinian humanitarian crisis in play.
How do the Israeli people think about this? I mean, is there a lot of division? We see in Western media, there seems to be a lot of division over the issues of Palestine and two-state solution. Is there actually that much division among the Israeli people?
Well, that is the wonderful question, and one that a lot of people are asking today. And I would just go so far as to say the Israeli population has changed. The national psyche is in a different place post October 7th. It's a totally different Israel. Those that would have aspired to or held to the idea of a two-state solution are not thinking like that any longer. When you think about that, we were able to have that Israel was even the capability of Hamas to come over inside of an invasion of 3,000 Hamas terrorists into the southern border of Israel. You can try to envision now what would it be like to have a Hamas stronghold inside of Judea and Samaria along the longest border of Israel, where how would they keep them out? And so nobody can envision, even in a serious way, how to think about a two-state solution at this point inside the state of Israel.
When we come back from the break, Heather Johnston, CEO of U.S.-Israel Education Association, we're going to be talking about the buildup in Egypt, what might be happening this weekend, and what the fallout will be here in the next 30 days.
American business owners, you understand the power of TV. If you have a product that you want to sell to millions of like-minded Americans who value quality, hard work, and supporting the red, white, and blue, Supporting Patriots is the perfect place. If you're ready to bring your product to a patriotic audience eager to buy American, then contact us today at supportingpatriots.com and secure your spot on Supporting Patriots. Let's build a stronger economy. When we buy American, we support our future.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
You know, if I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep. It's showing up more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we're back with Heather Johnston, CEO of the U.S.-Israel Education Association, USIEeducation.org. Heather, I want to talk about this buildup in Egypt right now. There's been a ton of armor and artillery that has been pre-positioned in the Sinai. That seems to be a breach of the agreement between Israel and Egypt. What do you make of that? Or what's the talk in Israel right now about what Egypt might be doing or positioning for?
Mm-hmm. Well, it does seem like that things are heating up and that the region is at a very tender place. And if you might like to know, Israel also has sent about 2,000 troops to the border down to the Rafah, into Rafah overnight. And so they also are building up down there as well at the Philadelphia crossing. And the whole situation is very, very sensitive. Who knows what Hamas is going to do, how they might break the ceasefire, what may happen. Israel is getting on the ready, boots on the ground, and they are prepared to go back to war. And so I think that is why you're seeing the buildup on the Egyptian border as well. And you're going to see the Houthi rebels in Yemen. They're going to start firing again if we go back to war. So everybody's sort of on war footing at the moment.
It does seem that the U.S. is positioning forces in regards to Yemen and that Israel would be the force. I mean, I don't know how to make out what Trump said about all the hostages come back. Okay, Hamas says we'll return 3. That's not all the hostages. I mean, do they return the hostages and then a war starts? I mean, what is the sense on the ground? Yeah.
That's the $1 million question, and that's where the mixed signaling and message is. There are 9 remaining hostages alive to be returned inside of this ceasefire deal, the first phase. And so the bets are on and the bets are off as to whether that can happen or not, whether Hamas will keep their side of the deal. And I think that Israel is ready to go in and absolutely destroy Hamas this time. If they go back to war, it is not going to look like it did before. It's not going to be tiptoeing through booby-trapped buildings to be careful about hostages. If they go back to war, it will be for the decimation of Hamas. And so I think that's yet to be seen. The mixed signaling on the number of hostages is intentional, kind of. I think President Trump threw out that number, get all the hostages back. I think Israel's having to deal in real time with what is feasible. They're dealing with the national psyche. They're dealing with the broken families that are so eager to have their loved ones home, extended families, the PTSD, and it is very, very real on the ground inside of Israel today.
Yeah, I know. And I know it's hard for a lot of those families to come to grips with what's going on. But fact of the matter is Hamas is who is to blame for all of this starting in the first place. And I think we need to keep that in the forefront. I also want to bring up and get your reaction to U.S. taxpayers suddenly realizing that perhaps their tax money was actually building all of this and building up Hamas to lead to October 7th. That is quite a startling revelation, I think, for many Americans.
It is. It's a startling revelation for many Americans. And how about Israelis? There were also the Israeli government propping up the Hamas leadership through Qatar. And so a lot of people, a lot of the good guys are implicated inside of this scenario. Keeping a status quo going, limping along, thinking that Hamas was not as strong as they were, keeping a humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip going for decades. And so this is what it has led to, a final shock and awe situation, an invasion across Israel's southern border.
What can we look for the next 60 days? I mean, how do you think the rest of the Middle East is going to react to some of this? And I think people are testing President Trump right now. This is a period of testing, and he actually is going to have to show some power so they take him even more seriously than they already do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you have to look at two scenarios. One is, would Israel keep Hamas in power? Would they allow a second phase to go on to get the rest of the hostages back, including all of the bodies that are deceased, back into Israel? Are they going to actually go in and allow a second phase? Well, that's going to depend a lot on what Hamas does, how they handle this. What is it going to be like? Or what is going to be the state of these hostages, like we saw last week, emaciated and look like Holocaust victims? What is going to be the next phase and the next phase? Because we've got several more hostages exchanges. And I think that's going to, Matt, give us a window into what's going to happen next. It's my personal understanding, with all of what I understand and the people that we know on the inside, that Israel is going to finish off Hamas. That means there is going to be some sort of a war. There's going to be some sort of a way to bring Hamas to an end, either through exile, through war, whatever it's going to be. I'm anticipating there's going to be more war.
And I want everybody to see this next image. It's a little bit disturbing, but I want everybody to see this next image, because this is what happened to these hostages. Look at the abuse. You can see it in their eyes, by the way. The abuse, the torture they suffered, the fact that they were starved as well and then used as propaganda pieces. Absolutely abominable. And when people said never again, here it is. I mean, they're looking like Holocaust survivors, as President Trump correctly said. Here it is yet again. And so, the next question would be, Hamas is dealt with. What happens with Hezbollah and the remnants of Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Yeah, well, it's so important to address that, Matt, because really we're looking at a regional war, a 7-front war. So while the focus is on Hamas and while we're looking at a hostage situation, we have a regional war going on. Hezbollah continues to break the ceasefire. The Trump administration, as of yesterday, is allowing the Israelis to stay in 5 different posts along the southern Lebanon border to enforce the ceasefire. And so that's also a tinderbox. We've got the Houthi rebels being supported by Iran. We've got a weakened Iran. We've got a Syrian regime that has fallen. And so we can see these proxies have had a very, very difficult time underneath the Israeli power and force, plus the United States. And they have been brought low. They are weakened in their power, but they are not finished. And we have to make decisions going forward for the region. That's why the President Trump is so important, and his administration at this time. How are we going to defend the Jordanian border now as we're dealing with a new Syrian regime? How are we going to put together a coordinated air defense missile system to combat Iranian drones and situations with Iran? We've got a lot to deal with, a lot of questions that remain and a lot of decisions to be made for the region. What about a Saudi peace deal? Well, all of that is factored in each of these scenarios, from the Hamas hostages to what's going on in Lebanon to the Syrian regime situation. All of it is very interconnected. Each decision affects the other.
So many more reasons to pray for the peace of Israel and Jerusalem. Heather, if you could briefly talk about your organization, what your vision is, and what your goals are for U.S. Israel Education Association.
Well, thank you, Matt. I think that U.S. Israel Education Association is playing a very dynamic role on Capitol Hill. We started out back in 2011, bringing the key leaders, the chairman off the committee of House Armed Services, and we saw the Iron Dome for the very first time. If you take members of Congress to Israel, you get to see things, you get to educate, and they get to make informed decisions based on the education that they're getting. That is our fundamental role. We've been there at the derivation of each of the missile defense systems over the state of Israel. We're playing a major role in educating on things like what's going to happen in the day after. What are we going to do with millions of Palestinians today who have been indoctrinated to hate and to terror? Well, there's going to have to be some sort of international coalition, a fund out of Congress no longer supporting the UN Relief Works Agency, which was found to have the nefarious side of supporting Hamas. We've got to have a whole other collection of international players that are putting together the future, including Saudi Arabia and the UAE, who have scrubbed clean their education systems of all pejorative language toward Israel, toward Jews. They are going to be helpful hands in the rebuilding and the de-radicalization of the Palestinian people. These are some of the things that we're focusing in on Capitol Hill, alongside missile defense, alongside the Abraham Accords and the rise of those nations into treaties with Israel.
A future with Israel permanently in the Middle East. Heather Johnston, thank you for joining us on Patriot Radio. Absolutely amazing interview. We would love to have you back on again. USIeducation.org.
Thank you, Matt.
Heather Johnston, check it out. That was a really good interview, very knowledgeable. We've had a lot of experts on here before. That was fantastic. And what can you do this weekend? Well, I hope you've heard it 3 times now. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem and pray for the peace of Israel. We didn't even get into Iran yet. Iran hurtling toward a nuclear weapon intentionally. They've always been. That's what their direction has always been. Now they're actually admitting it publicly. And it's becoming very obvious that this is going to end up in a Sunni-Shia battle. But first, it's a Sunni-Sunni battle. You have Turkey, which is backing Hamas. You have Turkey, which is backing the jihadis in Syria. You have Iran backing Hezbollah. And you have Saudi Arabia, who is in charge of Mecca and Medina right now. Now, the Jordanians, the Hashemite kingdom, used to be in charge of Mecca and Medina, the holy sites in Islam. So what do you think Turkey's promising Jordan? To reclaim that rightful status, because that's who was in charge of Mecca and Medina for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So you can kind of see how the alignment is happening. You can also see why Saudi Arabia may want an actual peace deal and may want to broker something with the UAE and Israel and maybe even Egypt. But you can also see how Egypt is kind of left out of being in charge of certain things in the Middle East and is just really an ally aligned. And that adds another complicated piece, because Egypt has one of the best armies in the Middle East. So this next weekend, I think, is shaping up to be a historic one. And we need to just be in prayer. We also need to move to action. One of the things you can do by moving to action and not just being in prayer is you can write your Congress people, you can write your senators, you can write President Trump and support the existence of Israel. And also that there needs to be a crackdown against jihadis here in the United States of America. They're terror networks that have infiltrated this country. People need to hear this. Elected officials need to hear this. And your county prosecutor and county sheriff need to understand that it is probably in their backyard. That these networks, as was shown in the Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest terror financing trial ever successfully prosecuted in U.S. history, those networks are all over the United States in virtually every major metropolitan area and even in some of our smaller towns and cities. Because ultimately, the jihadis are not just aimed at Israel. They're aimed at the United States of America. That's always been the goal. It's always been the aim. And that's not my words. That's their words. That is their plan. That is their strategy. And like with the globalists and like with the communists, it's the United States of America that is the greatest obstacle to them in achieving success. It will be the United States that maybe has to make the hard decisions to bring peace to the Middle East and peace internal to our borders. Today, as you are praying over dinner, pray this prayer about Israel and Jerusalem. There would be peace there. And also, if you are feeling unsteady about hearing all of this news, and perhaps you need somebody to talk with you and lead you in a prayer of salvation so that you give your life to Jesus and make him the Lord and Savior of your life, which will bring peace to your life, you can visit us at patriotradio.us/prayer. And we will handle your prayer requests, and you can visit us at patriotradio.us/salvation. We want to walk with you through this turbulent time, but as always, the answer truly is Jesus Christ. And for most people that have given their lives to Jesus Christ, don't stop at the cross. Pick up your cross and follow him. That means there has to be a change of mindset. It means that we have to understand that it's both about revival and reformation, that we need to see nations discipled, not just individuals. And for that is definitely going to take all of us. We should get started now. If that resonates with you, please message us and become part of the movement for not just revival, but for reformation in this great country. This is going to be the greatest harvest in the history of the world, and the greatest reformation as well. Yes, there will be apostasy, and yes, there will be challenges. But together, we are the greatest generation, and the awakening is here. But we have to keep up the fight.